Okay, so I'm going to minimize that because I'm going to come back to that again later. And let's turn the render off. Now I'm going to go to my second light. The second light is going to be the fill light. Now the fill light is going to, let's do a little render here. It's going to kind of, these shadows are a little bit more contrasty than I want them to be, and I want to have just a little bit of light on here. I don't want such a contrasty light. I just want to give it just a little bit of definition and see some detail there. So I'm going to create light, and I'm going to put in a point light. And the point light is just like a light bulb. It just emits light from every direction from one single point there. And you know, I can kind of look around and see where it is. I'm going to put it right about there. And I'm also going to turn the intensity down. Well, let's just do a render and see what it does. Now you can see it puts on a whole bunch of light all over the place. And I just want to put that intensity down. It's a little bit more. It's kind of getting rid of all the shadows. So I'm going to bring it down, the intensity to 0.5, about halfway. Bring it down a little lower. Let's see what it does. Let's do a render. Okay, that's a little better. I can bring it down a little bit more, but what it does is it's just kind of softening those shadows, bringing those shadows out a little, not making them as contrasty. You can also see here, I don't know if you can see it so much, but the light is affecting the floor. It's actually putting a spot on the floor because it's kind of close to the floor there. So I'm going to select that point light, go into my relationship editor again, select the point light, and I'm going to turn it off that it is affecting plane 1. So it's not going to put any light, basically it's not going to put any light on the floor, but it's going to just put light on these objects. I could actually take the light off of the walls altogether. Let's just do that and see what happens. And so what it's doing is it's just, all that light is that it's just putting some fill on these objects here, these little characters there, and not affecting any of the surrounding areas there. So that's good. I like that. I'm going to bring down the intensity just a little bit more. Let's just paint 0.3. Like so. Yeah, I think that's a little better. We can see the shadows a little more, but they're just not as dark as before. We could also come in just a little closer here. Now we have two of our lights. We're not counting the ambient light. Ambient light is just sort of kind of giving it an overall fill. If we were to turn that down all the way, let's just see what happens. Yeah, ambient just is not going to put any light on anything. If we were to kind of put that back up to 0.3 or so, you can see that the ambient light is putting a little bit of light on these walls just to kind of bring it out. It's more of like a reflective light. The last light I'm going to put in is what's called a backlight or a rim light, and that, like the name suggests, is a backlight that goes from behind, and it's going to put some light and rim sort of the back edge of your objects to give it some depth. And what I'm going to be using for that is a spotlight. I like spotlights. They're my favorite lights to use because they're very much like real lights, like you would use in real life situation, like a spotlight in a theater or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of position this light, and sometimes you're going to find that this light is a little difficult to kind of move around and position. There's a little trick I'm going to show you. I'm going to go to Foreview over here, and this is my perspective view that I'm working on, and I'm going to choose one of my orthographics, just this one over here, and I'm going to go to Panel, and with the spotlight selected, I'm going to choose Look Through Selected. Now what this does is gives me a view that lets me look through the spotlight, so I can very accurately position where I want that spotlight to go. You notice that this is the circle, so this is the that is what is affecting. So I'm going to just go into here, and I'm going to, hold on, let's just get in a little closer. Let's do a render, and I'm going to show you what that does. So you can see that this is casting a spot like in a theater across these objects here. One other thing I can do is I can also control, if I go down here into the light shape, I have what's the cone angle, and I can adjust by just either middle mouse dragging or putting a number value in here. I can make that cone angle, or just sort of widen out the view of the light. Here now I'm behind the wall there, so I have to come in a little closer there. Oops. And let's just track it around like that. And let's click into the view I want to render. And that's rendering it right there. And see what it's doing is it's putting just a rim light up here, just along here, and it gives it just your object some definition and some depth. I'm not really liking what's going on here on the floor. Before I get rid of that, I just want to show you one other trick that you can do, is that you have this penumbra angle, and what that does is that kind of softens the edge either direction of your spotlight. So if I were to go change that and do a render here, you can see how that softens the edge of the light there. But I'm not really going to use that all that much. I'm going to bring that back to 0, and I'm going to go into my relationship editor here, and I'm going to choose my spotlight, and I'm going to have it not affect that bottom floor plane. I just don't really want that to affect it too much. You could if you wanted that effect like you're on stage or something. Oops, and that is the rendered this view here. I'm going to go click into that, and let's render that view here. Now you can see, I'll get in a little closer, but you can see some definition, some rim light, and it really helps giving your object some depth and some definition. What I also like to do with the spotlight and the rim light is I like to up the intensity a little bit, especially if I'm not having it affect the floor there, and just have it do something like that. So it looks like there is some light coming from an unseen source. So let's go into this view now. I'm liking the position. I'm going to go in a little closer, and oops, I have a crazy mouse here. I got to get a new mouse eventually one of these days. And let's do a view, and you can see what that's looking like. So what I'm doing is I have a nice shadow coming off of this side. I have a nice little rim light here, and I can adjust that a little more as I go. And I have a fill light that's coming in, and this is just not plain black shadows. It's just giving it a little bit of definition there. That is basically 3-point lighting. Of course, you can take it a little bit further. You don't have to stick with 3 lights, or you don't even have to stick. You can have less than 3 lights if you want, but this is a really good sort of starting ground. So you have 3 lights, you have your ambient, and then you can sort of build your lighting scenario from there.